unused bits, because you can write C# in the browser and the XAML, we needed to keep everything as part of the app. And the size of this in total comes out at 7.6 megabytes. So it's still quite a small download for your WebAssembly application. And I can show this app to you. So I'm going to go to avaloniaui.net, and I can come over to developers, click on WASM Playground, and this is loading our playground. And I don't have this cached, so this is downloading it and then starting to run it. So this is kind of the worst case scenario of loading. And there we go, that was pretty quick. In the browser, this same application works exactly the same running on Mac, Windows, Linux, or any of our supported platforms. And we have the XAML here on the left, and this is using it's an Avalonia specific fork of Avalon Edit. So this isn't a web control. This isn't using the DOM. This is just a canvas that we're drawing our pixels to. And everything's interactive, and we can come in and we can explore different samples, and we can edit them as well. Or we can go to the code, and we've got our button to click me. When I click it, it's incrementing the number, and I can see the code behind here. I can say, you clicked me, and now if I click it, it instantly updates. So we're not sure how many people are going to want to use WebAssembly, but it is there for people if they'd like to. We think that one of the use cases could be, especially with XPF, which is enabling people to take their WPF apps and run them on top of Avalonia. We're thinking that some people might want to take their apps and embed them into teams, so that if they've got line of business applications, they can deploy them to the application that is running on every employee's device. So that's WebAssembly. Oh, we've had the demo. And then on Linux, so Linux is one of our most popular platforms. Tends to be less desktop and more embedded. And the reason for that is, if we look over here, our dependency for Linux, we just need X11. So if we have a look at how Xamarin Forms used to work on Linux, Maui doesn't have support, but Xamarin Forms used to, that was using GDK or GDK Sharp. And this is a full desktop environment, and it's quite heavy. By just having a dependency on X11, we can run on basically bare bone microcontrollers, so very low powered devices. In fact, we can use just the Linux kernel and output the pixels, or push the pixels to the screen using the built-in frame buffer. So this means that Avalonia can run on really very low powered devices, which is why we've seen a lot of adoption from industrial applications and in the embedded space. Here are a couple of examples. I think one of these is actually a project from Alan, which is cool. The one in the middle up here, this is one of my applications that's running on a Raspberry Pi. Again, no desktop environment, just outputting via the frame buffer. Schneider Electric are a company that decided to use Avalonia for their application, and those are running on very, very low powered devices, very constrained environments, but their Avalonia app is extremely performant. So a great use case for Avalonia. So I mentioned Schneider Electric, but who else is using Avalonia? So you'll find Unity, JetBrains, GitHub, even Microsoft, Icon8, all building applications with Avalonia today. So it's tried and tested, as I said right at the beginning. This is a technology that's been in development for a decade. So it's grown exponentially in the last few years, but the technology is mature, and because of that, it's had adoption from some very large players in the industry. So to show you JetBrains and how they're using it, you'll find it embedded into Rider. So if you're using Rider on any platform and you do some memory profiling, the views that you're seeing there are all Avalonia. And they've also just released an early preview of .trace and .memory. And these are using Avalonia for their UI for macOS and Linux. So they had these applications, the profiling applications, built using WPF for Windows. And obviously, Rider is a cross-platform IDE. They wanted to be able to target and take those applications to be cross-platform, so they started to rebuild with Avalonia. And that's been a very successful project. So slightly different application. This is a digital engine that's got a fully customizable rendering pipeline. So it's designed for filmmakers, but this is a pretty nice example of the kind of complicated desktop style application that you can develop with Avalonia. And this was developed from scratch with Avalonia in mind. So this wasn't a port, this was a greenfield project. Another application, this one was a port. This is Lunacy by Icons 8. And this is kind of like Figma or Sketch, if you know of these apps. This originally started as a WPF app, but like JetBrains, they wanted to target new platforms. So they wanted to support macOS and Linux. And they didn't want to have to rewrite their apps entirely in a new technology. So they picked Avalonia, and they were able to reuse a huge amount of their code by leveraging how similar Avalonia UI is to WPF. This is a free app, so if you want an example of an Avalonia app, you don't want to pay for it, you just want to see what it's like, then you can go to Icons 8 website and download this application on whatever device you're using. Slightly different application. This is a little sample that a friend and colleague has created. So this is running on Android. Mobile support is very new for us. It's coming with V11, which is in preview right now. But he's been creating a Hacker News application. So you can see the kind of app that can be built here using Avalonia on mobile. So what's the development experience like? We've seen what the apps are like. How is it to build? So you can bring your favorite tools. So we have support and extensions for Visual Studio proper, so the beast that runs on your PC, be it ARM, which Jeremy will like, or x86. And then we also have extensions for JetBrains Rider. And these extensions give you IntelliSense when you're editing your XAML, as well as a XAML previewer. So you can, as you're making your changes in code, you can see those changes live without having to redeploy the app. It's kind of like hot reload, but in the IDE. So in terms of building your UIs, you have a couple of options. XAML and vanilla C# are the norm. Most people are using XAML, but you can use C# or VB.NET or F#. It doesn't matter. You can, if it's .NET, it will work. You also have some community projects which enable you to use Blazor syntax as well as C# markup, if that's more your thing. So the Blazor syntax looks like this. And then some C# markup looks a bit like this. In terms of like officially supported approaches, we have the XAML and the kind of Poco vanilla C#. But if you want to use slightly newer cutting edge approaches, then you can do that with these different syntax types. So let me show you the development experience. So I've got Rider here. Now, I specifically didn't mention Visual Studio for Mac. We do have a Visual Studio for Mac extension. Let me create a new project here. And I was working on it over the summer, but there isn't actually a mechanism for us to release it. And that's because the Visual Studio add-in, as they call them, Visual Studio for Mac add-in story is a bit in flux. So the code is written, we can support it, and the previewer does work on Visual Studio for Mac. But until we can actually deploy it to the add-in gallery, then we won't be able to release it. But should Microsoft decide that they're going to push forward with that, then we'll be able to support Visual Studio for Mac. In the meantime, you can use, you could use text editor if you wanted and build using the CLI, or you can grab yourself a copy of JetBrains Rider. So this is our project. It is, if you've ever built a WPF application, then you're basically an expert in Avalonia already. We have our main window. Within that, we have our XAML syntax, and here we've got a text block, which has got a binding, which is coming from the main view model, .greeting, and if we have a look at that, we can see welcome to Avalonia. If I build this, I'll be able to show you the previewer. Whilst that's building, I'm going to format some of the XAML. In fact, let's change some properties. So you can see I get the full IntelliSense experience that just makes development that little bit easier. And let's have a look at the preview. There we go. So we've got the preview down at the bottom. That's a little hard to see. So I'm going to pop into the app and I'm going to change the theme at the moment, which is light, to dark. I'm going to hit rebuild. He says. There we go. Now the theme's updated, I can change the font size and everything else. Let's do 30. And I can hit F5 or debug, start running this application. Oh, there we go. And our application is running. And in terms of like the installation experience, this is just a .NET application. So if we have a look at the CS proj, we're not having to install workloads or faff around with anything like that. We just have some NuGet packages. So you have your standard Microsoft.NET SDK. Our output type is WinExe, and then we bring in our packages. So it's quite a nice development experience, and this works the same across all of the platforms. So we can take this same app and we can run it now on Mac OS, Linux, on the web, or anywhere else that Avalonia is supported. So the demo you just saw there is our current stable version. So that's 0.10. And we have a new version in preview at the moment. So preview 5 is the current latest version. We'll probably do a preview 6 before we go properly to stable and release this proper. But we have Avalonia v11. And the reason from jumping from 0.10 to v11 is that, as I keep saying, Avalonia is mature, it's stable, it's been around for a decade, and the numbering system kind of made people question the stability and maturity of the framework. So given that we're in use at such large corporations or mission critical applications, we decided that it would be better reflected if we use the version 11 rather than 0.11 as our next version number. But V11 is like packed full of new features. There's some audio, but I don't know if you can hear it, but you don't need it to get the full effect. and it's preview fine. So what's new? So we have a brand new compositional renderer that's extremely fast. So in the Maui world, there is a popular benchmarking test, which is how many lulls per second can you print to a screen. So it's basically testing how quickly you can update the view hierarchy. And I think Maui's pulling in a couple of hundred per second lulls, so printing these lulls randomly on the screen. With our new compositional renderer, Avalonia is doing just over 4 million lulls per second. So to give you a comparison to Uno, which is another technology that's on paper quite similar to Avalonia, Uno were doing 72 lulls per second. So kind of 72 lulls versus over 4 million lulls. The new compositional renderer is just crazy fast. We have accessibility support, IME support, we have view control themes, we have rich text editing, updated control templates, we have native AOT support, you can trim your applications now, it all just works out of the box. We have 3D transforms, we have smoother animations, and the new platforms, so iOS, Android, and WebAssembly. On Linux, we have Wayland support, we have apps are 30% faster, reduced memory usage with faster startup times. We haven't decided if it's going to go into the 11 or if we'll hold on to it for maybe a rainy day, but we have our own version of Skier as well. So the wonderful Matthew that you know and love, as do we, has been working on Skier Sharp for a long time. But the general Skier Sharp bindings cover a very large API base. So we've created our own bindings to Skier, which uses the latest version of Skier, and we've created an approach that enables us to get even more performance out of it because we can focus on the hot paths that are specific for Avalonia. So we've seen significant performance increase in that. We're still speaking with the .NET team about how we go about collaborating to make more improvements to Skier Sharp in general. But yeah, we may potentially release that internal Skier version as well, which will increase the performance even more. Right, so that's kind of Avalonia in a nutshell, very briefly. So I want to talk to you about the Maui hybrid. So Avalonia UI loves Maui. And the reason we love Maui is, well, there's a couple of reasons. Number one, I used to work at Xamarin. I've been doing cross-platform UIs for over a decade. And Xamarin Forms and Maui have a place in my heart and a place in the rest of the team's heart. We recognize that with Maui and Xamarin, that native UI for mobile is quite important. It's what a lot of users want. But at the same time, when you're creating custom controls, you don't want to have to get into custom renderers for every single platform, and you don't want to have to rewrite your custom control 3 or 4 different times. You just want to write it once and have it look and behave the same across all of the platforms. But then other elements of your UI, they really need to be the native toolkit UI. So what we've done is we've created this hybrid approach, which allows you to mix and match Maui controls with Avalonia controls. So this is a little demo application. On the left hand, we have all Avalonia UI controls. And on the right-hand side, we have Maui controls. And this is all defined within one XAML file, but we also have the ability to bring in entire Avalonia pages. So this is using our compositional renderer. And this whole page is just built with standard Avalonia UI. But the navigation stack and the app that it's living in is a standard Maui application. So let's say our thinking behind this is that, number one, for mobile, it's important to have some native controls. And this means that Avalonia users can get access to some of those native controls through Maui. But on the other end, Maui developers can get access to Avalonia for the custom controls and custom views as and when they need it. So in terms of the kind of typical Maui architecture, you've probably seen this if you've ever watched any kind of guide or intro to Maui, we've got platforms at the bottom, the runtime, .NET Maui, and then your application code. So if we add in how this works with Avalonia, Avalonia UI kind of sits alongside Maui. The application it's living in is a full Maui application, but we kind of sit, as I say, alongside it. So I'm going to give you a demo of this. Let me pull up Rider. I'll close this puppy. So this is my solution. The implementation of the hybrid lives in this project here, but we don't really need to look at that right now. The sample app is just a normal Maui application. I have my main page, which is a normal Maui main page. I do have XAML namespace import here for Avalonia, which is bringing in the Avalonia controls. So we have content page with a scroll view and a vertical stack layout. And this is Maui, so a couple of labels, entry, which is also Maui. But then we have an Avalonia button. And the cool thing about this is that we have the content mapping to the same view model as the rest of the UI. So it just becomes like a custom control for Maui, but it's Avalonia. I can bring in extra controls. So I can say, I want a calendar, for example. And this is available to me and the bindings still work. And let me run this. Let me see, where's my emulator? Here it is. Boom. So we have our Avalonia calendar. I mean, you saw the same calendar control running in the web using WebAssembly, and now it's running on Android with Maui. The navigation control is Maui. These labels are Maui. Everything is Maui apart from this button and this calendar. But I can click it, and it works as you would expect it to. So this is a kind of hybrid approach. But we also have another approach. So the second approach is slightly different, and we're not sure which approach we want to pursue. We may decide to just go with the mix and match hybrid approach. So any feedback from you would be appreciated on which, if any of these are interesting to you. The second approach is creating an Avalonia backend for Maui. So Maui sits on top of a native UI toolkit. Maui is less of a UI framework and more of just an abstraction. The UI framework that's powering Maui is Coca Touch, WinUI, Catalyst. We can make a version of Maui that sits on top of Avalonia. So this would enable you to write your application, your Maui application, and target additional platforms. So not only would it potentially look the same across all of the platforms, so iOS, Android, macOS, Windows, you can also add into that Linux, both desktop and embedded, and WebAssembly. Now, your app code is still just Maui. It's just Maui would sit on top of Avalonia UI. And we've kind of started this approach already, just as this is all kind of proof of concept stuff. But if I come back to Rider, I'm going to stop the little sample, and I'm going to have a look for where is it? It's going to take me a moment to find it. We have so many apps in here now. It's going to be in here. It's in our Maui program. So here we go. We're saying that we're using Avalonia, and we have this replace Maui handlers. If I say true, what that's going to do is it's going to replace our the Maui handlers with some of our example handlers here. So we've got entry, we've got label, and we've got button. So we've got the very basics already implemented. And if I run this, what that's going to do is these labels, this label, this text entry here, will now become Avalonia controls. So the XAML that we write is still Maui XAML, but ultimately when we're running on the device, it's running on top of Avalonia. Yeah, it's already running. Perfect. So this is now all Avalonia. And you can kind of see it with the text box. This isn't your typical material design text box, but it still just works the same. So we're not sure which approach to kind of build out and continue with. We may do both. We're kind of putting this out there to the community to see which one is most interesting to people. So yeah, which one do you prefer? So in terms of our roadmap for the hybrid, first things first for us, we wanted to get V11 shipped, and that's our top priority. And once we've got V11 shipped, we're going to return to working on the hybrid approach. And once we finish the hybrid, we may or may not start work on the Avalonia backend for Maui. So lastly, before I finish up, one more thing. This is a private preview. I announced this last week. I think it was a week Monday. So it's kind of still hot off the press. We have been working on something we're calling Avalonia XPF. So this is the ability to take a WPF application and run it on top of Avalonia. There are hundreds of thousands of enterprises out there that have applications built with WPF, and the modernization story and recommendation from Microsoft has been, you need to rewrite it. Sorry, bad luck, build it with Blazor, bring it to Maui. For applications that have been in development for 10 years plus, that's a huge ask. And there's a lot of risk in rewriting an application, and there's a lot of time consumed in order to rewrite an application. So we were working with a lot of customers that wanted to kind of reduce that risk and time by using Avalonia. And we were asking ourselves, is there a better way to do this? Can we help these people and these companies get their applications onto newer platforms and onto macOS and Linux faster? So we forked WPF, which is MIT licensed on GitHub, and we replaced the lower levels. So if we have a look at how WPF works, the application sits above the presentation framework. And at the low levels, we have the OS core components and then a library called MillCore. So what we've done is we've replaced MillCore and the OS components with Avalonia. This means that the top two layers, they have very minimal changes. In terms of the public API, everything is just there. The ideal for us is to make absolutely no changes, certainly in presentation framework, but as I say, there's a couple of changes. But there's, in terms of your application, your WPF app, you make 0 changes. You bring your app and you update the project SDK style type to XPF from WPF. You hit F5 and it just starts running on Mac or on Linux, or even on Windows, because XPF is cross-platform. It also runs on Windows. Where this kind of we've had to make some interesting caveats around this is third-party controls. So we support third-party controls like Telerik, DevExpress, Infragistics, and a lot of these controls reach down into this lower level, especially around GDI. So we have to make sure that those APIs are available, and we have done that. So we have full compatibility with third-party controls as well as your kind of vanilla out-of-the-box WPF controls. So the idea for us is that you should bring your application and it will just run on the new platforms. So this is a commercial offering. Everything you've seen up until this moment has been open source, part of the .NET Foundation. This XPF belongs to Avalonia UI, the company. And this is an enterprise solution. So this is, I like to describe it as a glass of water to the businesses that have been lost in the desert for a decade. This is not aimed at people to build brand new applications. This is for those who have those large legacy apps and want to bring those to macOS and Linux. So we have, as I say, the third-party support, DevExpress, Sync Fusion, Telerik, and we can add more as and when we need them. It's quite an easy process for us to make sure the controls are compatible. A lot of controls just work out of the box. As I say, it's only when they reach down into those lower levels and Windows-specific APIs that we need to make sure that those are working cross-platform. We have early access. So we have already started selling this. We've sold a couple of licenses already, and we're kind of onboarding new customers over the last week and a half. And I can't give you a demo that I just hit F5 in Visual Studio or Rider and run it, because this machine is owned by Microsoft. And this is not something we want to put on a machine that's owned by Microsoft. But I do have some videos. If you are interested in seeing this running from Visual Studio, where I do hit F5 and I can walk you through the code, and you can drop me an email and I can arrange a demo with you one-to-one and show you how this all works. This video here is a super early build, really, really early build of XPF, but we've taken the Exceed Toolkit Plus sample app and we've updated the project SDK and we've hit F5 just to see how that works on Linux. So there's no changes to the WPF app here other than that project SDK, and it just runs on Linux. As I say, there's a couple of issues. You can see kind of the tree build. This is another example. So this is again on Debian, so Linux, and this is a DevExpress chart that's running. Again, no changes, just vanilla WPF. And the dev experience is exactly the same that you would have building any other .NET application. You can close the app, start making changes to your XAML or your code behind, hit F5 and relaunch, and it all just works. There we go. And then the last little clip I've got, I asked my colleague, can you get me a video of a sample app? And he literally pulled out his phone and videoed his screen like an animal, but we have it nonetheless. This is XPF customer app running on XPF on Windows. So it's not just Mac OS and Linux, but XPF also runs on Windows if you want it to. And this application is just full of DevExpress control. So this timeline at the bottom is DevExpress. The toolbars on the side is all DevExpress. So yeah, it's we're really excited about this because the project's been going on for years, and we've been selling support contracts and doing custom development work and porting applications for people, which has helped raise enough cash that we've got a modest team. We're about double the size of the Maui team, working on Avalonia full time. We want to grow that team. We want to continue to help enterprise businesses that have kind of, as I say, been in the desert for a little while. We want to give them that glass of water, and XPF is a mechanism for us to be able to do that and grow our team and to help continue to build great open source technologies with .NET. So if you want to learn some more, the best place to go is our website, which is avaloniaui.net, and you'll find links to our docs, which are being entirely rewritten, but the docs are still there and perfectly useful for today. You'll find links to the showcase. You'll be able to get in touch with us if you have any questions. If you're interested in XPF, then there's a link in there where you can arrange a meeting and I can walk you through how it works and answer any of your questions. Are there any questions?
How do we apply for
I'm going to take silence as good.
Sorry, I just unmuted. So please, round of applause again so you can hear. Yeah,
Thank you.
You can hear us, right?
I can. I'm just turning you up, but I can hear you.
Let me just take that off so we can see you and me. No, thank you very much for that talk. That product is really amazing. So it's really great to see that. Is there any questions?
How do we get it?
Yes.
So
Questions?
this product, is this just basically the UI layer on applications? You give you access to platform specific KPIs.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
yeah. So can you?
Just the UI.
Yeah. Can you hear that?
I can. So the question, correct me if I'm wrong, the question was, can you access platform-specific APIs? Or is it just the UI layer? Yes, you can access platform-specific APIs. It basically works exactly the same as Xamarin. So in fact, you can bring in it used to be called the Xamarin Essentials. I'm not sure what they've renamed it, but all of that just works with Avalonia. We are at the UI layer, so we don't provide those APIs for you, but those exist already within the community, and we didn't feel like there was really a need for us to reinvent the wheel and ship Avalonia specific stuff, because the Xamarin stuff just works.
So
There's a follow-up.
I am a mobile developer native iOS Android, so I've seen a whole lot of cross-platform come and go, including Xamarin and Training. How does it integrate with like the life cycle of the platform? Like you have iOS and Android, you have on port and Play and the rest of them. So, and there's basically for mobile applications where when they go to the background, they pretty much effectively stuff. But if you want, you have APIs that allow you to computer run the application. How does this really play with this? Because in Flutter, you really struggle with things like Flutter and React Native.
Yeah, so the application lifecycle works basically the same way that your Xamarin Forms application would. So if you look at like Xamarin Forms on Android, that was just one activity, which is kind of a strange way to build an Android application. If you're kind of traditional Android dev using Java, you'd be creating multiple activities. But yeah, we've taken the same approach as Xamarin for mobile, specifically because we're built on top of Xamarin. So what we do on the iOS and Android side of things is we rely on, I think they're calling it Net iOS and Net Android now, which was formerly Xamarin iOS and Xamarin Android. So the application lifecycle works exactly the same as you would find with those platforms.
Does it answer your question? Yeah, so basically matches the platform that's running on in Android and iOS's case, it's Xamarin. That's
just one last question. Have you the benchmarks and stuff? You get a minimum of at least 50 FPS for rendering. I hear you mentioning scale rendering. How does it perform when it comes to rendering frames per second? Like,
yeah, so the performance is really good, really good. So as I mentioned previously, the lulls per second is like this. It comes from the Microsoft team, and we took that and adapted it to Avalonia. Uno team did it as well. So as I said, Uno gets 72 lulls per second. Maui's getting like 300 or 400 lulls per second. Avalonia is getting over 4 million lulls per second. So in terms of like FPS, we're extremely performant. There isn't, I mean, it's almost embarrassing. I've asked the guys, like, can you stop working on the lulls per second? Because at this point, it's not fair to anybody else. Let's just, stop with this.
yeah, but on that question, everything that you're doing is graphically drawn, right? So it's not like
That's
native
correct.
controls, native buttons. So it's more like Flutter in that respect.
Precisely that. So we haven't copied Flutter. We've done this from the get-go. So 10 years ago, that's how this started. As I said before, we have the dependency on Skier Sharp to do the drawing. We have our own version of Skier that we may or may not release. We also have direct 2D if you're on Windows. You don't want to have the skier dependency. 99% of the apps that are built are using the skier sharp approach to drawing. It's not a requirement. We are potentially going to be looking for V12 to see if we can support Impala, which is the new rendering approach that Google are building for Flutter, because we think that there may be some performance gains there. But that's, we've probably got 2 years before we're at V12. It's on our radar as something to look at, but it's not a requirement right now.
Yeah, you can replace skier sharp. Matthew's on honeymoon right now, right? So you can sneak that in. Cool. Is there any other questions? Anything else? Yeah, I've got an obvious question. It's like we're gonna get that every day from companies and stuff. Why would we choose Avalonia over a Maui? Because you've got the two options. What would your suggestions be when we get questions like that? What do we do?
It really depends on the customer and the platforms that are a priority. If the customer is mobile focused, then I think really a hybrid approach is a great approach. One of the things we've seen with speaking to customers is that they want native to a point, but they also do want the apps to look and feel similar across the platforms. And they spend a lot of time customizing each app for each platform to basically look the same. So they're kind of going against the grain with what comes with Maui by default. So Avalonia can be quite a strong value add there. If you care about desktop, frankly, Maui is 5 years away from being able to compete on desktop. And that's assuming that they, increase the resources that they have. They've picked WinUI for Windows and Catalyst for Mac, and those two technologies are really going to make their lives very, very difficult. So I genuinely don't think that Maui is a competitor when it comes to desktop apps. I think that on mobile, there's a great opportunity for partnership and for that hybrid approach. I personally wouldn't right now build a mobile app entirely with Avalonia. And I say that as someone that's going to be working for them full time in a couple of weeks. I love the tech, I genuinely do, but I think that for mobile, hybrid, mix and match, Maui and Avalonia is the best approach.
I do like what I saw about how you can put Avalonia controls in a Maui app. So start with Maui and then use what you need. Cool. Yep. Is there any other questions? Any insights? I think everyone's speechless. Yeah, but yeah, thank you very much. That was really, really cool to see. And yes, please make use of that website and go give feedback and get that demo of XPF that we're not allowed to see because of Microsoft. So please reach out to Mike on that and also give some feedback. But yeah, thanks, Mike. It was an awesome talk, and I'm definitely using Avalonia. I saw you snuck in my app there as well. So thank you. Yeah. Oh, cool.
Pleasure.
Yeah. Okay. I think one more round of applause for. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah. Just a question, Mike. Are you going to hang around or for
yeah,
the
I'll
rest
hang
of the
around.
sessions?
If that's all right, I'll turn my camera off, but I'm going to sit and watch if that's all right.
Cool. We've got additional speakers that will be speaking about Azure, and also our next speaker is going to be Alberto. We want to learn more about our sponsor as well, which is Axo. So he's going to give a little session on that too. So yes, so.
We'll delegate this task.
We're going to delegate. Okay, all right. Go for it. Let me get out of the way.
Sure. So very warm welcome. So this is a brand new office. The opening was actually on Thursday. And for that, the founder came down, Jürgen. Do you want to say something otherwise? Do you want to say something?
Yeah.
You ready?
Not very much. In fact, I just want to say hello. I would like to welcome the Microsoft Developer Group for the first time in our office in Cape Town for the meetup after pandemic times. It's a pleasure for us to host this event. I would like to that you enjoy the talks, have nice discussions afterwards, and maybe also. Thank you.
And go. Yeah. A bit of detail around that. So, a German IT consulting company. We have just over 230 engineers in 4 locations in Germany, so Munich, Darmstadt, Berlin, Frankfurt. And with the Cape Town office, ACTO is going international. So it's quite a big step for a company which was solely focused on the German market. And now we're going to start looking into new markets. So the UK, Holland, Netherlands, as you would say, out to Scandinavia, but also Italy, and then Singapore, so Asia, time zone's quite good for us as well. And then the third objective is basically Africa as a continent. So high human impact projects, environmental projects, things like that. So we are obviously keen to be part of various communities here. Of the 240 engineers, we have 40% of them are in Microsoft world, so .NET in particular. And for that, the big projects which we have are around TV stations, a lot of manufacturing, and we see obviously the fintech as well. So I would just like to again say it's a warm welcome, and please stay around for a drink or something.
It's a German company after all, so this, yeah.
Cool. Cool, thank you a lot.
Right, everyone, I just want to give everyone about 10 minutes to go get more pizza, grab another drink, grab some drinks, cigarette for me. And then we will kick off with Azure. It's a radio.
Basically, what related to what they I use Avalonia on IoT devices. And then what
Guys, do you want QR code for opposite? Can I take a picture of my QR code?
Pipeline. Then you put KG. That's the going to say so in that when you hear those writing, I've got writing on the equivalent of 538. And it's like so
Nice.
yeah, yes, so it's the usual cycle of things like you can but then what happens is it's right into a piece of language. But if you want to go that instance on top of the example, what they did was the whole thing. But with the mono runtime still and all that type of thing that runs on Android, and of course they've got it on iOS as well. So it uses that infrastructure to write on. So the platform there is basically Xamarin native, not Xamarin Forms or anything. That's the Xamarin native. Why don't you have one Android activity, but And then from that point onwards, when you start, for example, when you get like this, it then goes, well, I'm going to label here, I'm going to use the version for Android or button. Like button, that's what it does. So it is an activity, and then it just uses the native platform control and maps it out. So that's what you do on, right? So once you've got your app, you've got the compiler options to say, well, my goals is going to be in the time compile. You've got a choice. It's not always just the time compile. Yeah, hopefully it works out. It's a setting that you can. It's a choice that you can make. It takes startup time, it takes apps. It's a choice. And then of course, look at the link. That's about the link for big things. So it is it's a good picture. Any important, any it's really and then you link that some of that stuff out. With apps and stuff. We get
I had a client who was coming up with the performance of it. Yeah, that was cool. That you are. There's nothing. I didn't
yeah, so that's why I think how that has changed. They've changed the architecture to how so they give you the pipeline to go, I want to do graphics, and they also give you the rendering pipeline to say, well, I want to do that. So what they've done is the architecture how it's allowed. That's right, Avalonia does seem quite nicely. So you've got those Avalonia controls. That's graphics tool plus the native controls. But there is a couple of devices and projects that do graphics going for now. It's working on that Maui graphics and things like that. That does graphics on projects. Which are the project So that's and it was a viable platform and Zagreb was kind of viable from one point what's I like about Zagreb is to form things like those forms in a simple way that's cross-range but you can say you can make delve into user data skills and stuff, do those type of things like iOS background, you can use platform background, you can use the the Android scheduler, if you're going to supporting those type of long running jobs. It's not like it's just, it's not like, oh, you get this. It's just about putting it on things like that. It gives you those native APIs in the actual platform, and then Xamarin utilize that. So it gives you the best of both worlds. So that's why we still need to it's one of those things, it makes it easy, but I don't like, I know this is not this in the cluster and stuff, the graphics, and then you can go into the native stuff, but then of course now you're going to go into the actual native, real native stuff, you actually then dropping into the Xcode, some of the stuff, and video and some of the stuff, that's when it's but it's something exactly. That's what it sounds like. So you say editing that graphics and then you library any IoT just a nice direction to it. That one itself is actually very light because it itself is just one direct findings to the IoT experience and Xamarin you can run in that Xamarin. And then on top of that, you're going I would say finding you actually built a Xamarin with fragments and all that stuff. That's it's just the job code. But of course, they went like, because now you're building this thing now multiple times. What you're reading like is the job code, it's the IMS and but now it's like Android XML. And of course, your UI also yes, Xcode and stuff. So that's why they were in 7.4. Because now there's one definition. That's what I try to do. Try and make it the right ones run anyway. But what's cool is if you use the native they know the API. But that's it's the right time for everything that was Microsoft. And then his goal was to let's make it right one aspect. They're going to basically binding it that process the lives and it actually does the job mapping to native code. So that really top. That's how they can keep up so quickly. So Android needs to be all they do is they run that little, they're finding it against the new API and the next person. That's why they're able to keep up with it. They're not writing like that. So I can see a lot of work coming converting things that's where it says, hey, they'll fix it on a mobile right? It's amazing. It's not a mobile component libraries, PCL and stuff like that. It works in Android, it works in iOS. They've got too much abstraction of the way of the it takes so long with Android API to actually modify it. So those type of apps, because they don't have That's like.
Someone keeps it. Yeah, that's a problem.
But you can. So. The reason why the design of trade people, the legacy of they like the design. So that's that allows because that takes about the design. Some people do something that's everything is out of creative.
I'll just check it out and
But that's really nice one, like graphic. It's really cool. The only thing I don't like about it, when you need to go extra, then it's a pain. Yeah. And then of course you've got that experience with the organized side. You've got the language platform on the other side and the language. I think we make and then of course that guy's fight. It's like that activity's great. iOS on the UI, the UI system that's just going you can't know what you're scoring instead of responsibility. What you can do. It's not bad. It's good, right? Yes. Put your comments. We're on. And then it's
using the same machine. Yes, I literally. Stage. Here, am I sharing with? Am I sharing the screen?
Yeah, share on Teams.
Oh, this is your primary monitor, is the big one. Is this the right one? Okay. We'll see now. I think I'm sharing the different screen, but that's fine.
Yeah, you're sharing different view.
Okay. Anyways, welcome again to the developer user group. Thanks for inviting me, Alan, reaching out to me on LinkedIn. I come to your sessions all the time. It's so great. I mean, we learn such cool stuff from .NET and just all developer related queries and questions, and take all the time you can, network with the folks around you and help us, grow this. make it as good as possible. It doesn't always have to be formal. So if you want to do like a presentation, it can be really informal. You don't want to be recorded or not recorded, whatever. So if you want to shout out something, do it. Like, I'm not going to be offended. Just don't. So this is me. I'm actually a cloud solutions architect for Microsoft. So I work on the infrastructure as code side of things and DevOps. And then every now and then I open my IDE, which is almost every day, and I mess around on some C#.net and anything else I can get my hands on. So this deck, because I know I've been doing it with some of the other presentations I see, I always take pictures off my phone. So I've hosted this as a PDF. So if you go to ak.ms, cptms Doug, you can get this deck as a PDF. So if there's anything, because I'm going to say, click at this link and click on this link. And sometimes what happens is I don't share the link. So it's on here. So if you want the link, it's on here. Then I wanted to open on a lighter note because we're all a developer community. So this is my most creative way of saying fun facts or any other title that you can think of. And because we're in Cape Town, I wondered why sharks always look so sad, right? And the reason for that is white and mako sharks, instead of blinking, they roll their eyes back, which is the same thing I do when I get asked to do something. No, I'm joking. So the next thing, any Lord of the Rings fans? I know you're not here for, yeah. So 9 things you can say to make you sound cool and Elrond. Personally, I have 2 favorites. The first one is greeting people. So strangers from distant lands, friends of old. That's a good one. It hits. The second really good one is you're wasting your life. So the long years of your life are utterly spent. Now, anyways, we'll get back to that. And then the last story I have, recently, I tried to take a mental break from my screen. So what I did was I bought a Nintendo Switch and I downloaded The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt, played all 150 hours of it and the expansion packs. And I decided, what must I get? What's new? What's cool? I know Hogwarts Legacy is out. So one of my friends sent me this video. And I mean, the graphics are a bit shoddy, but I think it looks pretty great though. What do you think?
Don't read the absolute hatred that's happening on Twitter.
Fantastic, okay, fantastic. So this is just the GTA mod on top of it. So, anyways, okay, a little bit more serious. Every presentation needs a quote. The first time I saw this, I rolled my eyes like the shark because I read, "It's not enough to be up to date. You have to be up tomorrow." And I was like, up to tomorrow. Now, cool. So the first Prime Minister of Israel is the person that said this, and this was in 1955. Now, if that guy realized it was important to be up to date with stuff, how much more in today's dynamic, ever-changing IT environment? So I'm going to try and have this presentation as quick and easy as possible, and it's going to be what's new in Azure, some things, not all of it. How do I keep up with it? And how can I try this in my own environment? So first section, new releases. I've broken it up into 3 sections. I have infrastructure because that's where I work most of the time. I have web and I have dev. I know web and dev could be used intertwined, but could also use infrastructure with it. So everything's everything these days. Starting off with infrastructure, the format that I'll be using is something like this. So it's going to show you if it's generally available or if it's in public preview. And then I have a little date to your bottom right. And you can see this was released very recently. This is the managed run command for when you run PowerShell scripts on virtual machines. Now, I don't know if anybody I know you're more a development company, so I don't know if you really use this right now, but I'm pretty sure some of your customers might be using it. This is if you want to kick off something inside a virtual machine on Azure, there's a feature called run command. You can run this in parallel and it works really great. That's a little screenshot. I think it's okay on this screen at least to see where you could run it. Now you could also kick this off in PowerShell. You could also use DevOps. So a really cool feature. And like I said, each one of these slides, if it's something that catches your eye, the Learn More button is in the PDF. If it's something that you just scroll over, just scroll over. Something that's a little bit more exciting for me, I use Azure Automation all the time. Is there anybody else that uses Azure Automation? Louise, okay. So great. One person. This is probably not because it's not in your line of work, but Azure Automation is a tool that you run in Azure that allows you to run scripts and services on servers. I always say to people, you can do anything you want, but it's a really vague statement because you can do anything you want if you know the PowerShell how to do it and if you have 12 hours to troubleshoot it afterwards. So, I mean, that being said, you can run WordPress, you can kick off stuff on websites. Azure Automation is that tool that is really great when you have an infrastructure or a web app or something running in Azure and you don't have a commandlet that you want to run on your local machine to automate something. So another part of my work is automation in general, and Azure Automation ties in very nicely there. You can also run some Python scripts, so you can run shell scripts. So I use this to call everything. And I have a small demo because they're just always easier. So I'm going to come here, did them pre-recorded. So I'm really sorry about that. This isn't even my machine, but it's just easier during these sessions if I can show you how it works. So if you're using Visual Studio Code, you might be familiar with extensions, and the Azure Automation extension is what is in preview. And they launched it in January, so it's really very new. What I'm doing right now is I'm connecting to my Azure environment. You can see there it is. And I'm dropping down on one of my automation accounts. Now, automation accounts, I know everybody in the call might not be 100% familiar with it. They have a bunch of stuff in them like variables, credentials, and everything gets stored securely in Azure, not on your machine, not on your friend's notepad. And you can use these variables, credentials, these items, and call them in what is called a runbook. So what I'm just running through here is the variables. Variables, you can see name and value is in clear text. If I don't want these variables to be seen, or if I'm building in a customer environment, I will use an encrypted variable, which you can see there's encrypted true, so I cannot even see the value, but my script will be able to call it at least. Something really cool about automation accounts, think of it as your little shared server. You can pull in modules and PowerShell modules that you need to run directly into the automation account so that you don't have to update them on your machine all the time. They just live in Azure on there. You can also create schedules, run them on recurring schedules, days, weeks, minutes, however often you want. And then the meat of Azure Automation in general is what I'm showing over here, which is runbooks. And the runbooks I'm just showing as an example as a PowerShell runbook. So it's PowerShell 5.1, but you can also use PowerShell 7. So if you want to run it on Linux machines, you can install the newest version of PowerShell, and this should cater for all of those needs. Very, very basic script that I'm just going to create is just we love cptms dag, and it's just going to do a write host out to my server in Azure. Now, like I said, once again, you can do anything as long as you know how to do this in PowerShell. So it's great. This is the runbook, and I'm going to just hit save. And you can see I'm testing it locally on my own machine. But then what I'll do is I'll push this runbook into Azure, into the cloud, and it will live. You can right click and say publish runbook or upload as a draft. And once it's uploaded successfully, I can go, and just to show you what it does if I had to go to my automation account, this is what it looks like in Azure if you have an automation account. There are my runbooks on the left, and I can see I have a new one. Now to convert it from new or draft to published, once it's published, it means I can execute my script. So if you've ever seen a PowerShell that you want to run and you don't know how to run it, try and run it with an automation account. It is going to make your life a little bit easier. And you can also, it's easy to share this with everybody in your team to say, here's the access to the automation account, let's run this or let's test this. So it's really one of those features that people really haven't used to its full extent. And then we can see it's now published. And I can then click on it and run it. And that is it. So that is it for just 2 quick updates on Azure infrastructure. Moving on to web, which is probably more a space where most of you focus on. And I told Alan about my slide for day 0 support for .NET 7. And as I told him, I saw on my LinkedIn feed 22 minutes ago, .NET 8 Core, is now released. So it's one of those things like you buy the thing and then when you walk out the shop, like the new one comes in, and you're like, yeah. So it's that. But anyways, we do offer day zero support for it. It's expected to be now Q2 of FY23. If you haven't built, so 40% you said earlier of the team's .NET, if you haven't worked on .NET before, you can deploy an ASP.NET app very easy. Our quick start documentation is becoming amazing these days. It's really, really like, you know, like if you ever go into a docs article, it says 48 minutes to read and you're like, I'm never going to learn .NET. But now it's like, oh, 6 minutes to deploy. Okay, I'll give it a try. You know, so .NET right there. Something else? Right? You're not going to ship your machine to the customer. So, okay, Docker, containers, AKS, whichever you like to use. Our build and deploy to Azure is public preview since November 30th. Fantastic. It's the AZ Container Up app, right? Container Up app or whatever. They've renamed it just to be the up command, which I think is a lot easier to say when you're trying to say it fast. That little piece of code you see on the right-hand side, if you have an environment already set up, this is the command you need to build a container app. That's it. If you fill that in, it will build. So let's take a look and see what that looks like. Right. Now, funny part is our documentation says that the up command is the fastest way for us to deploy and have our app running in minutes, right? So I always take these things literally. It's going to take minutes because I don't know, can I go have 2 coffees or, you know, let's see. So what I'm going to do is that is exactly what I have right there. I have an image and the image comes from the Microsoft Container Apps container registry. And I'm just pointing it to a resource group in the environment. I have a little timer, port 80. So I just want to access it from anywhere. And this timer is running. The long years of your life are utterly spent. Probably not as fast as Avalonia for certain things, but I mean, you know, that doesn't build the infrastructure though. So it just builds a local app. So I'm joking. Sorry. I haven't tried the LLL the second. So 26 is okay. And I hit open and I'm pretty sure I didn't edit this video slide to make it faster. So I think it was really 26. You can see it's my 4th version of building this container. I have like 6 running now for doing the demo, but 26 seconds and I have a container app. Really not bad. That means I can build it, dump it. Like if I don't want to use it later, it's really quick. Up command, easy to install. If you don't have it installed, it'll install automatically. So really cool work there from the Docker team. This is just my app environment. There's also a nice documentation on how to set up a container apps environment if you don't have one. If you have a Visual Studio subscription, use those free credits to deploy your first container app. And it's going to help you set it up. So there's, you know, with all these demos, it's always like, oh, this is what you do. It takes you 14 seconds and then you give it to your customer and you leave it. Not really. There's always stuff you have to do. So there is a little bit of prereq work. To be honest, it took me maybe 20 minutes to do the prereq work. And then the up command I can use going forward to build a container anytime I need a container. So really neat. Moving on. Static web apps. Anybody using static web apps at the moment? There we go. A few people using static web apps. Yeah. Static web apps for me. My wife asked me the other day to build a hamster website for herself. Took me the whole weekend. I worked through the night every day because I was visiting my parents and coming back saying to her, look how fantastic this. I built WordPress for you on Azure using a marketplace image. So all in all, 32 hours. And all she said was, no, it's too difficult. I don't want to use this. So I deleted that and it cost me a whole bunch of Azure money. So anyways, now static web apps the way to go. You want something, here's a static thing, you edit the code and then you learn something new. So fantastic. Static web apps. So what are we getting new, generally available? The static web apps team are actually really approachable. They're super nice. Like I chat to them on LinkedIn sometimes and they reply. So very nice. December 14th, this became generally available, the diagnostics for static web apps. So I have a live static web app that I'll show you later. But if you want to build your own, this was one of the fastest demos that I've given to anybody else. So no, it's not the 26 seconds fast, but somebody asked me the other day, hey, can you build us a fake phishing website? And I was like, I'm not a web dev. And they were like, okay. And I said, give me 5 minutes. And I've within 5 minutes deployed this static web app. So let's take a look what that could look like. And this is also one of those things. Try it for yourself. For me, it was really, really nice. The link will be included for you. What you'll do is you'll grab a copy of the repo they already have, and you can just clone it on GitHub. I'm doing it on GitHub Actions. You can probably do it on DevOps as well, but it was just easier on GitHub Actions. So my second static web app, because my first one is called the Azure Update, which you will see a little bit later. And that's it. So now I've cloned it to my repo. You could probably go to that repo now and it's probably still live. So fantastic. Don't clone mine. I've messed mine up already. So just do a new one from the team that made it. Okay, so what do I do now? The great thing is the Azure Static Web Apps team have even designed a extension for Visual Studio Code. So now I don't even have to know any commands or funny things to do. All I do is I type in web app. It'll come up the Azure Static Web Apps extension. That's probably the version 11.4. It's in preview, so it will work. What does it work? 50% of the time, all the time, right? Something like that. So not really. This one is really great. Remember to open the place where you cloned all that code now, because I tried to run this multiple times in the wrong directory, and it sucked. Didn't work. F11. You hit F11, and it takes you through 5 small steps on creating a static web app. Asks you for which region do you want to build the functions in. Asks you what type of project you want to use, Angular. I just use custom. And just point it to the source directory that you see over here. There's the index HTML file, CSS file, very, very super basic. And you can see there it's running. Woohoo, creating my static web app. And now I wait, I think not 26 seconds. I think it's, yeah, that was much faster. Faster than I can talk about this is how fast this builds. So now if I go to my GitHub Actions, this will be set up automatically. If any of you do this and you can fix the error that's going to come up now, like I will give you swag on the next developer group, I promise. So mine is working. It's a live website, but that step is still broken. So I will show you soon. This is my static web app. Do you know that guy at Microsoft? Yeah, I had that the other day as well. Didn't work. It was me. Vanilla JavaScript app running. It's called Nice Smoke. I mean, you know, get down. I don't know. So vanilla JavaScript app. That's it. Easy as that. Build your website. If you want to make a change, guess what? Because it's integrated into GitHub Actions, I have built-in source control, so I can just change that to I love Cape Town Developer Group. That's what I used. Yes, I did. I love CPTMS Doug. That's it. I only practiced the meme slides. I didn't practice these because I did these myself, so I know what's happening. Then you type git commit wrong because you leave the -m out every single time, and then you do a push. That's it. And super fast. Looked a little bit fast forwardy. Do you think I did some trickery there? I don't know. I can't remember. It's going to happen. It's going to kick off a new GitHub Actions workflow, and it's going to run. Takes a quick second to run. That's the error. That one that you see there. I'll show you after this. If you want to see the error that gets you a free T-shirt, come to me. So it'll build and deploy the server for me. This runs every night, and I also still need to stop that schedule. If you've never tried to refresh a website, if you hit F12 and you do that, it gives empty cache and hard refresh because it just sounds refresh-like. So I love CPTMS Doug. Woohoo! That's it. And that is how easy it is to deploy a static web app. Really cheap as well. I can't remember what the exact pricing is, but it wasn't bad. When I say bad, I mean, for me, bad is $15. So I don't think it was even $15. So pretty great. Now onto the developer section. I have 2 items for us. Public preview. So I know we spoke about a little bit about containers in the previous slides. The slides, we're on containers again, but the Azure pipelines as well as the GitHub teams have released a task for us in Azure pipelines that can help us build those container apps. So is there anybody right now that works in DevOps, or is everybody GitHub? What are you doing? Yeah, so you work in everything, right? If I do a Teams presentation, do we work in Teams? Yeah. So if you're using DevOps or if you're using GitHub or these tasks are available for you. They are in public preview, so most of the stuff should be worked out. It should be great. You can do .NET, Python, Node.js, bunch of languages that it supports. Anything that you can run in Docker, you could basically run using this task. This is the same version for the DevOps one, because I thought if half of you don't use DevOps, half of you might use GitHub. So I think I've got a 0% success rate there. But there are links, great links that can help you set these things up. I have a demo that can show you what this could look like if you wanted to build it. So let me go through that real quick with you. This is Azure DevOps. But anyway, so you have your repositories over here. I'm going to do an import of a repository just because it's easier, but you could use your own local code. If you have an app that's running, you know, push it to whichever one you want, whatever source control you like. And you can always come in here and do a pipeline. I think you get 5 free, is it free projects, right? If you build it. Yeah, so you get 5 free projects. If you never used DevOps before, but you want to try it, give it a try. It's cool. Okay, so now I've done a repo, cloning it to my local machine. And this one is maybe not, I wouldn't say not as user-friendly, but if you look at the end goal of what you're trying to achieve, then I guess it's worth the effort. So previously we used our AZ up command, and that was really quick. I built a Docker, and now it lives there, and now what, right? Now every time I want to make a change to the code, or if I want to update something, really difficult, right? So this is going to help me do exactly the AZ, the container app up command, or the up command. And the way I'm running it here is you'll see I have my own machine. I just type bash, even though it is PowerShell. It's switched over to Ubuntu for me, or Linux on Windows. And after hitting the up command, if it notices that I don't have anything, it will install the extension for me. That red is just the AZ login, so you know, don't get excited. And that's when you paste and you little control C when you make a mistake and it's something feels like it takes too long. But what I'm basically doing in essence now is I'm just testing to see if everything on my local machine, all the dependencies are there, everything's working. Do I make a new container registry and all this stuff? And it's always cool when this goes by, like it's fun, right? I don't want it to be hidden. I want to see everything because obviously I know how to fix digest SHA 256, you know, definitely not. So it's going to do a build, then we're going to give it a second. So that is my registry, container registry, where I host my containers in. And that is a blurry section, which means hackers can't hack me. So now I'm going to just do, what I have to do is I have to create a managed identity in Azure. That becomes my service account. So I don't have to use my own account to log in and do stuff. The managed identity takes care of that. So I've done my managed identity that you can see there, AZ container app identity. And then I went too fast and now I'm already at the registry set. So now I'm setting my registry. I have a registry that I've cloned my local code into. The system identity is already assigned. Fantastic. It's going to do a run and then a few extra steps I have to do. This is the update that I'm actually presenting to you, even though it feels like I'm presenting a bunch of other stuff. It's called the container apps deploy task. You grab this task, just install it from the marketplace into DevOps. Think of DevOps as your server now where you want to run stuff. Go to my, should be going to my pipelines. Sorry, I do have to configure my service connection. So I have my managed identity, but I do need to configure the service connection for it so that DevOps has a way to speak to Azure. So I'm going to do new service connection, and I'm probably going to just use that. This is all documented, like this is not a really long documentation. I have to say, for the payoff, it was pretty worth it, but it took me about maybe like 45 minutes to go through all of this. So you get the 5-minute example, which is sick. Like if we could do it that way, maybe I should practice more. I don't know. Okay, so there it is, my subscription. Here I have a bunch of other pipelines that I'm running in this organization. So what do I do now once it's all in DevOps? To create a pipeline, which would be similar to a GitHub action, something that's going to run all the time. Every time I make an update, I just do a pipeline. It's already in there. You don't have to write it. It's all, they give you the example, Control C 5 times and then Control V once. Yes, and then that comes here. So save and run again. So run maybe like 4 more times, and then it will run. And don't do bad comments like what I do. Like I say, comment 2. What did I do? I don't. It's your mystery to solve, Elron. This is the pipeline, and what it's going to do at the end of this demo is it's just going to build another container app that you can ship to your customer. So some work needs to be done. But this is the identity that I just created in the example. If you want copies of these videos, I can also put them in the same place where I've done the PDF. That way it's open your OneDrive link. So if you want to step by step, but like I said, the examples are great. This is just container apps in general. So if you've worked on that before, that might look familiar. Now that I've taken you through all these demos, what's the idea? What's the reason? I recently did a presentation excellence course, and they said you should have a point. So either how do you make people feel, or what should they do next time? So I hope you're feeling okay. I mean, if not, there's so many beers in that fridge. I don't have to drive, like, you know. But end of the day, the Azure Update's my little website. I hope you don't have any other browsers open.
What, Edge?
No, I don't know. No, not the browser. I have links, but it's good because you didn't. I thought you were gonna sneak up on me with a WordPress in there or something. Okay. The Azure Update very. No.
Nobody needs that.
Okay. It's very basic. So, but it does the job for me. So if you feel like, oh, you know what does the job if you put it on the right screen. Now we can all look at it together.
That you got a shipwreck on your updates page.
No, it's blue. It's Azure. It's so blue. It's the first picture I googled when I googled bug. So very productive.
Train wreck, let's stack up.
I'm not going to do train wreck just yet. I'll do that on the Azure status page. No, I'm joking. Azure updates. This is the default one Microsoft says to follow. So if there's anything that you feel like you're falling behind in Azure update, you can go there. If you want to see the stuff that I showed you today, this is where you would find that information, like what's new in .NET, what's being released, what's in public preview. So if there's anything that you need to or want to look at that is Microsoft related technologies, it should be listed in here. And it really makes you easy to find why is this screen's on the wrong side, right? So if I just search, I don't know, .NET. Let's not search .NET. Let's search Azure Automation. It's quite a nice keyboard you have, eh? So you can see here I have if it's now available, if it's in preview, or if it's in dev. And there's the one we just looked at, the Azure Automation Visual. Yeah, so I mean, here I'm teaching you how to use a website. But anyways, so if you want to look at cool things, they are on that aka.ms update. If you, the only thing I do whenever I come in here, it works really well on your phone, and this runs in static web apps, so it's pretty cool. If you go in here, there's a YouTube channel with a guy that talks about this whole thing that I talk about. 2 minutes, 2-minute updates. You want 2 minutes? I want one. Well, okay, 2 minutes. Okay. So go in there, YouTube page, 2-minute updates every day for you on everything Azure, and that's all you need for now. You know, unless you like 400 minutes behind, then you need quite a few. What's new on Twitter? I took the 9 most followed Azure Twitter accounts, and as long as I don't need a blue tick or something that's going on, I think this will still work. So I'm not going to pay for it, but Twitter Azure support, Azure end of life, Azure dev. And then if I scroll down, I have a few people like Scott Hanselman, Mark Razinovich, just really, and this is much nicer on your phone because now it feels like I have to have more than 2 eyes. But in your phone, on your phone, it's just on one page, and you just quickly scroll through them. If there's something that catches your eye, like low code February, that sounds pretty cool. That's from the Power Apps team. So 30 days of low code, really good stuff on here. What else? Yeah, so everybody that talks about stuff, Scott Guthrie, he's like the CVP or something of Azure. So really people that post stuff that's all Azure and every now and then rants about stuff. So pretty cool. How to switch back. Magic. Okay. If you have or don't have any Azure certifications, this is just a very cool looking slide. But if you scan the QR code at the top, it'll take you to the page that teaches you about this. Whether you from a data scientist perspective coming in, or you're coming in from an app side, or you want to learn more about security, networking, or you're coming from DevOps. I've written everything on that side. I've written 1 or 2 things on this side. And that's, yeah, I guess I'd say I'm on a 38% completion rate. So you want to get accredited in Azure, it always looks great on your CV, but I mean, you don't want to leave AXO, so don't just worry about that. But they are cool. The certifications is something that if you're not going to just download the exam dumps from a Russian website, like this is really nice to go do the learn documentation, actually learn how to do it, right? So most of the stuff I talk about today sometimes is included in the learn paths, and it's really cool. And talking about the learn paths, that's where I'm going to say start. If I don't know if has anybody gone into the Microsoft Learn website? You use it a little bit? You're not allowed to put your hand up anymore. Okay, so there's a few people that has gone in there.
Some of us read.
It's just, yeah. Yeah, thanks. I have spoken to, I just spoke to somebody earlier who said that they're transferring from being an accountant to transferring to being a developer. Like, I mean, how cool is that? That today you can learn to become anything. So this is a good site before you start paying for stuff, like buying a course on Udemy or LinkedIn Learn or whatever. Come in here to Microsoft Learn first. You can search the documentation, but also if you go to certifications, which is the same almost as the other picture, here's a bunch of stuff that you can look at that's built on Microsoft Tech.
They fixed search functionality because I need to write the AZ900 exam, and I put in that AZ900 and it didn't actually bring up anything related to the Azure.
Search up there, or did you search down here?
Search.
Okay, you can search up here. Okay. So anyways, if you choose any of these paths, you can do app maker. And I mean, some of the things obviously is going to be, it might be things that you know, but you might not know it in the Azure context, or you might have seen this on another cloud that's also 3 letters, you know. But this will teach you how to build it in Azure, and it's cheap and trusted, the most trusted cloud. Here's your AZ900, right? So I didn't search, but I scrolled about 2 swipes. 2 swipes? Yeah. Like when you had that phone in the olden days, my dad said if you scroll down 48 times, you can phone me. You know? 2 swipes, and you're at 8900. What do these things look like if you want to write an exam for DevOps or whatever? It has a skill guide. And if you keep on scrolling, it has the modules for you in learning paths. Now, credit to Louise, sometimes you do struggle to find these learning paths. So what I do when I see them, I save them, and then I just put them in my collection, and then you can come back. There's the button. Yes. So that is the learn and certification, and then every other demo that I did is right in here. Join us, right? I didn't tell you that this slide is in here. If you want to do what I just did now and just share some of the stuff that I work on, and you know, maybe it was interesting, maybe it wasn't interesting, but if you have something to share, the whole idea, me and Alan had like a 9-hour conversation today during my customer calls about community, right? No, I'm joking. I was still talking to them, but I was listening to him.
I know your peripheral is very
It's like
yeah.
Focus, super focus. So if there's anything that you're working on, sometimes if you present the idea to somebody else, it really just unlocks something for you and then becomes a little bit easier, or you might learn something, or you might not, but you won't know if you don't try. So that is it. So thank you so much. I know I didn't have a question. I know I didn't have a question section in, but it's so much better if you just ask me questions on the sideline or drop it to me on LinkedIn, because then I definitely respond. So.
But just to write on what Dan has said, no piece of knowledge is ever too small or too stupid for the rest of us wanting to actually find out. You know, there was a great talk by a guy who spoke about how he taught himself how to become an FPS shooter. Last year he won, you know, the Telkom Go. So just let you know, there isn't what you learn, we want to learn. So please do come talk. You saw me 3 years ago. I was fumbling all over my place. I had makeup everywhere. We're shopping. I am your baseline. You can always be better than me. All right. Guys, thank you so much, Axel, for hosting us today. Apparently they've got beers,
Yep.
so that's great. So please hang around.
Whether
stick
to be
with-
scared or excited. Okay.
So I'm just gonna tell you the story about Vander. Vander's heard about me. He's met me a few times, but he is at my client. And I was at the client at the same time. So I saw them in a meeting room. And then all he hears is, he didn't see you. So I went around the other way. And eventually Vander kind of looks at me and went,
Trying to keep my train of thought talking about what they need to build in Azure.
never feel like you're too crazy, too off the wall and too psychotic to do the job. We're in IT. We have to be.
Yeah.
All right,
Thank
thanks
you.
everyone. Thank you to, actually, I'm going to turn on some music, you guys. I'm in charge of my Spotify. I'm the driver. Don't forget to with me.
What do you mean?
Oh, and Michael, thank
Mike,
you. I was about to say,
Thank Mike and I think,
oh, I think we lost him.
No, it's still there, Teams.
No, we lost him.
Okay, Alan is on at least.
yes.
Thank you for listening.
Oh.
You're welcome.
Yes.